So the thing I'm talking about today is something I'm get a little less heated about than the shit I normally talk about. Kind of ironic given that I'm talking about my own job today, but you know, it's going to be a chiller video than usual. A lot less screaming and cussing. Still probably going to be plenty of fucking cussing. That's just kind of how I talk. I was raised around nothing but like firefighters, soldiers, and Mississippi women. So like, that's just how I talk. But probably going to be a pretty chill video by my standards. And so what I'm talking about is, I've seen a lot of people, mostly like liberal data wonk types and MAGA anti-any government types, which is kind of weird, strange bedfellows, right? Especially since in this case, the MAGA types are getting all their talking points from the liberal data wonk types, which normally is like their least favorite type of people. Strange bedfellows. But what I'm going to be talking about is the trend I've seen of people getting like kind of anti-professional firefighter in a way. And the chart that the liberal data wonks always pull up is a chart that their position makes sense if all you do is look at that chart, right? It's a chart that shows the number of professional firefighters going up over time and the number of structure fires going down, which is true. There are more professional firefighters and there are less structure fires. And it makes sense to look at that chart and think, is my money being wasted? So, why are there less structure fires to start with? Basically, better fire education and better code enforcement. Now, we do a lot of that education and code enforcement, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there needs to be as many of us as there are, right? If there's still way less fires than taken by itself, even if we're the ones doing the education and code enforcement, you would think that maybe we could be scaled down a little bit, right? So why is the number still going up of professional firefighters? Well, one part of that is just kind of economic inevitability. As small communities develop, they switch from volunteer fire departments to professional fire departments because, and this isn't at all to disparage volunteers, they do work that I do for money, for free. I have a lot of respect for them. But the quality of work is not the same when you're expecting somebody who has another full-time job to then as a side thing for free do another job that's pretty complicated and dangerous on top of that. That quality of work is not the same than a professional firefighter whose entire professional training, whose only job, who like everything that we do is fire department shit, right? So the quality of work is going to be different. So once communities can afford it, they tend to get a professional fire department. And you might say, well, that's all well and good, but if cities have less and less fire, why can't they cut down on the number of firefighters that they have? And that makes sense, right? At first blush, that makes total sense. Sure, makes sense for small towns to get more professional firefighters because they're going from none to some, but why can't cities cut down? Well, there's a couple reasons for that. One reason that has a couple explanations. The reason is response times. So response time is a self-explanatory concept. It's how long it takes the first unit to get to a place if a fire is called in. And the standard now is shorter than it used to be. Now it's 4 minutes. So why has the response time standard gotten shorter? Well, first of all, the expectation of what's a successful fire attack has gotten much, much higher, which I think is a good thing. It's good that we expect more, that people expect more out of our work, right? But you go way, way back in the past, not my time, not my dad's time, not my granddad's time, maybe not even my great-granddad's time, but probably somewhere thereabouts, right? The standard, if a house caught on fire, the standard of a successful fire attack was containing that fire to the neighborhood that house was in. So as long as the fire didn't get out of the neighborhood, spread and burn down the whole town, that was a successful fire attack. Okay, well obviously that's not quite what we want out of our fire departments these days, is it? So what was the next step? The next step was, as long as only the first house on fire burned down, that was successful. You prevent it from spreading to other houses, the rest of the neighborhood is safe. That's a successful fire attack. Getting a little better, right? A lot less houses are burning down in this scenario, but it's still not quite what we should expect out of our fire department, I don't think. And people, by and large, when you look at the way standards have increased, people by and large agree that we should have a higher standard than that. So what did it become after that? As long as only the contents of the house all burned up. Like the structure was okay, didn't need to be totally rebuilt. Maybe you need to rebuild some interior walls. You gotta buy all new shit, whatever. But the structure is there. The shell is okay. And that was the standard for a while. And now we're getting pretty good, right? The person doesn't have to rebuild their whole house. Could be worse. But even that is not quite good enough. Now, the standard, if it is physically possible to do, with the fire conditions present, is to get in so quick that the fire is contained to the room of origin. That's the goal now. We want to get in and not let that fire spread to the rest of the house. We want to get in and put it out in the room of origin, so only one room and its contents are destroyed by that fire. And ideally, not even the room, just the contents. So if you want us to put stuff out, even if nothing else had changed, that requires shorter response times. We can't take 20 minutes to get to a place and then confine a fire to its room of origin, even if nothing else changed. But something else has changed. What else has changed? Well, what did things used to be made out of back in the day? Wood, cotton, shit that's flammable, but not like flammable, you know? Like, if you're wearing a cotton shirt and you stand next to a fire, you aren't about to burst into flames. Anyone who's gone camping knows that it can be a fucking hassle to get the campfire going, right? So it was flammable, but not super flammable. What's everything made out of now? Plastic. Your clothes, plastic. Your car, plastic. The vinyl siding on your house, plastic. Your curtains, plastic. Your fucking dog, plastic. Everything is goddamn plastic now. So not only is the goal to confine things to a smaller area if they catch on fire, but they're made out of much more flammable shit. Plastic will go off like nothing. So that is why we have to have much shorter response times now. And having shorter response times means having more fire stations. Having more fire stations means having more firefighters. And that's the reason that there are so many more of us, even though there are less structure fires. There's a related gripe that I'll just address real quick at the end from the same kind of liberal data wonk people. And that's, well, okay, even if you need more fire stations, why do you send big fire trucks on medical calls? What's the purpose of that when you could just send a little squad unit or something like that? And the reason for that, like, you look at our call volume actually has gone up massively over the years. It's just that fires are less of it. We do a lot more medical calls, though, to more than balance it out. And when you look at why we send fire trucks to medical things, there are two reasons for that. One, you can be coming back from a medical call and get popped on a fire, which is, it's not like an everyday thing, but it's happened to me a couple of times. So if you have to go all the way back to the station to get your fire truck, that's not helping with that response time that we talked about, right? And the second thing is that most of our medical calls are traffic accidents. And what do you want between you if you break down or get in a wreck on a highway? What do you want between you and 70 mile an hour traffic? Do you want a little squad car and like a little cop cruiser that are both just like slightly more stout versions of the car that you're already in? Or do you want a 30-foot long, 30-ton vehicle between you and that 70 mile an hour traffic? I know which thing I prefer. Different people might have different preferences, but I prefer the 30-foot long, 30-ton vehicle being the thing that keeps that traffic off of me, personally. So, it's a case where data, and this one I pick up on because it's my job, right? But I think that this highlights a bigger problem with the way that people think about things, where you look at data about something that you don't really know a damn thing about, and the data seems to be pretty clearly pointing a certain way when you just look at like 2 data points. But then you know about that thing even a little bit, and it's like, oh, those data points are basically meaningless without all this other information. And I think that it's a good thing to keep that in mind when you're analyzing literally anything. It doesn't matter. No matter what you're analyzing, keep in mind that unless you dive deeper into that thing, even if you have what seems like a good reason to believe the thing that you believe, you might be totally full of shit. And that's okay. You don't know what you don't know. But try to know things on any topic before you speak confidently on them. And I think that's about all I have to say about that.